Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of Building Beyond. My name's Lee, and
Hi, I'm Erika, and we have a amazing guest, Sophia Alejandro-Velásquez.
thank you, Sophia, for being here. This podcast is about interviewing community builders and people tapping into their ancestral wisdom to build other ways of being and living on this earth. We're excited to have Sophia here and hear about her journey. Sophia, can you tell us broadly what you feel is your work that you're here to do in the world and how are you doing that?
My name is Sofia Francesca Alejandro-Velásquez, and I would say that the work that I feel called to do here on this earth is definitely contribute to the idea of balance and helping others to navigate their journey toward balance. Yeah, I think something that comes up for me a lot in my line of work. So, my training is in psychotherapy. I have a degree in psychology and then mental health counseling for graduate work. In the colonized world, they call me a therapist or psychotherapist, but then the world that calls to me is contributing the spiritual aspect of healing with behavioral changes and shifting behavioral patterns while building relationship with self. That's the space that I live and navigate every day.
Thank you. And I guess we forgot to ask you, Sophia, where are you located?
So I'm in San Antonio, Texas, Southwest Side, Quintana community, and that's where all my work is rooted. I spent about 12 years in Del Rio, Texas, over on the border. I recognize now that a lot of my intuitive awareness was awakened in my time there. But you're an adolescent, you're a teenager, you're just trying to get through school and navigate social situations. When I look back on that time, culturally, the people I met and the mentors that I had there have a bit to do with what has shaped my existence and my knowledge now. Well, thank you for that. I know a lot of your background, but I wanted to ask you, how is it that you found the spirituality which you're also working with? The detailed answer to that question is I literally had to go pick it up. I felt a calling that something was missing from my life. I checked all the boxes that my parents wanted me to check. I finished high school. I went to college. I got a graduate degree. I got a job, a paycheck. I got health insurance. I checked all the boxes that my parents said needed to be checked. And so I thought that, okay, once I can do that, I can just chill. But that time came and I felt such a yearning and aching, almost a mourning, like a grieving for something. At first I thought, well, it's my queerness. I need to present to the world in an authentic queer way. Maybe once I do that, this will go away. This mourning, this melancholy. And so I do that. Then I come out to my family and go through that whole thing, and I'm able to live freely with my partner, and I'm still just like, what is this? Maybe I'm just depressed. Maybe I need some antidepressants. What started happening is I saw you on social media when I had social media. I don't do social media now. But I saw you living so authentically with Anel and your girls. And I thought, how do I do that? How do I love myself that deeply? You just radiate confidence and illumination. I just thought, how do I do that? Mind you, I'm 26. I'm 40 now. And I just messaged you. I said, I'm queer, and me and some of my friends would like to meet you and just get to know you. You were so kind. You were so gracious. And so meeting you was my introduction to curanderismo, to healing, to traditional folk healing. And so, not to say I hadn't heard whispers of it throughout my life, but remember I said, you're an adolescent, you're just trying to get to the next step of what you're told you're supposed to be doing. So nothing matters. Yeah. But when I met you and started learning about this art of healing, all the whispers started to return. All those little clues and invitations from my ancestors started to make sense and formulate. So like I say, I went out and I found it. I found you. And I thought, if this is going to be an avenue to get me to this place, let me explore it. So then we become friends, we become closer and closer. You start inviting me into your home when you're working with people. That was fascinating to me. And then through you, I met others in the healing world. That's really what it was. I had to trust that this was somebody who was calling to me for a reason. And I had to trust that she was going to answer that call. And she did. She did.
Thank you. But I think above all, you trusted yourself and your guides. So like, girl, do this. You had to do that. But thank you. Yes.
Agreed.
Were you already practicing at that time, Sophia? Okay. I was curious how that connection and deeper into your own spirituality and connection has guided your practice, and then where you see perhaps a need for those coming to you. Are you able to better help others, or do you see that same melancholy? And that really resonated with me, the way you explained it.
Yes. So I was very much checking the boxes. Let me get a job that'll pay. Let me do therapy in spaces where I'm guaranteed X amount of money. Then here comes that internal call to do more with what I've been given, right? So I was kind of at a crossroads between the more accepted form of psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, the types of therapy that insurance companies will reimburse, and moving along that route while in this other spiritual space of connecting with ancestors and asking them to guide me, and continuing to work with Erika with this art of healing, and others teaching me about plant medicine. So I'm doing that, but then every day I'm going to this job that does not align, and I do not feel rooted in the work I'm doing. That brought about House of Healing. Just decided I can do more with my knowledge. I can do more with my desire to explore the human condition outside of this specific model of psychotherapy. House of Healing is born. I start putting up my marketing, and Erika actually referred some folks to me that started my practice. I started with maybe 5 to 7 clients who were continued to schedule with me, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. I have the caseload. And then that grew and grew and grew. So I think the way my spirituality has shaped House of Healing is that when working with people, we go beyond the behavioral patterns and changing the behavioral patterns. We're really looking at, what does it feel like to exist for you? Where are the stories that shape you? What does that mean to you? Let's talk more about how that impacts the way that you move through life versus tell me all the things that you don't like about yourself so we can fix them. There's really this deeper rooted space that I'm allowed to go deeper into their innate wisdom, go deeper into the whispers that are occurring that they don't know what to do with, those calls for spirituality, those calls from their ancestors. We do a lot of work with exploring this way.
And for those of us not in San Antonio, House of Healing, I'm assuming, is your own private practice. But from what I saw, it looks like you started it with a family member.
So House of Healing in San Antonio is rooted in my family home. My parents purchased this house on the southwest side, I believe, in the mid-70s. And, it's kind of been a hub for our lineage. So my parents lived there. Then when we moved up to Del Rio, some aunts occupied the home. My grandparents lived there at one point. A cousin lived there. So it's this living structure of all of the energies and animas that belong to me, that are influencing me and providing me the knowledge, the wisdom, the education that I need. And so it didn't feel so wrong to start my private practice there. I thought, well, I'll just convert this half of the house to like an office space. And then it just kept rolling. And my sister, who has a background in social work, initially she's also part of this plan, this dream, right? And so that was a beautiful interaction too, building this with her and creating the foundation of what we were going to be doing and dreaming up some of these concepts together. That was all beautiful and very healing for us. I think an important part of my work is that I'm sitting in the center of space where literally in the room while I'm working with people are these knowledge keepers protecting us and just sitting with us and allowing that energy between me and whoever I'm working with to flow in a good way.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess I just want to ask you, because you did talk about how the whispers, right, came to you, didn't know what to do, and how you are talking to people who may not know what to do with those whispers. What advice would you have for those who may not have a lineage that they can go to, or they might not have someone, an abuelo, una abuela, an elder they can go and ask for guidance? What advice would you give these people if they feel that call?
I'd say ask, what do you require of me? Literally sit, and the words are going to play out in your head. What does this require of me? Pay attention to who you're meeting, who's randomly showing up in your life, what events you're noticing that you're being called to. Pay attention to what is seemingly trying to present to you and show up. Go. Ask the people that you're meeting, do you know anything about Indigenous culture? Do you know anything about how to use plants as medicine? Start using the word when exploring in that way, and you will find somebody who says, yes, I think I do, or I do know of a group that's working in this way. But initially what you said was, what do you do with those whispers? That really is talk back.
Because really, I want to just say, it made me feel crazy.
Yeah.
Am I going crazy? Is it me thinking out loud? Was it the guides talking to me? So, yeah.
And it does feel silly sometimes. And I've been in a room alone before, just asking, what is the thing I need to do? What is it? And the next day or within the week, it arrives. And I don't mean that to sound facetious or silly. I literally mean that it arrives. And I think that's the beautiful thing about working with our ancestors, trusting them, acknowledging them. They will answer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Was there a point in your journey where you really were resisting? Because the way you've told us so far feels pretty fluid.
Yes. And what ended up needing to happen is I had to remove some things from my life so that I could continue this way.
Yeah.
What things?
Well, I had a best friend of 15 years. The path she and I were on was very playful and let's go out and let's party. And I could not do both. I was not able to do both. As the friendship evolved, I started recognizing that these two things cannot exist. And there was some relationships that could not exist. Some romantic relationships, other friendships that just could no longer exist if I was going to fully move toward this calling, healing, working, and aligning with ancestral knowledge and wisdom. That wasn't easy to do. That was very hard to do. I think there were times too when I was allowing other distractions to pull me from this path.
Yeah.
So in those ways, there have been difficult times in choosing. I continue to choose this, but I have to edit some of what my life looks like.
Yeah.
That's a great point, because to this day, I still notice that I have to continue edit some of my life. Like some of the friends actually just fall off. They're just because we no longer aligned with that work. Not that they're bad or they need to change the thing, because they don't. It just doesn't work with the path. But,
And I feel like, Erika, you and I have talked a lot about this, that some of this work, at least for me and a lot of people I know, there is such grief that comes up with it. And I know a lot of that is ancestral grief, but I also think it's that grief of knowing that we do have to let things go. And it's a constant process of people coming into and out of our lives as we continue growing and being on this path and listening. And so sometimes I feel like it's almost like a premonitionary grief. And that sometimes I feel holds people back, because they're like, well, this should be a a better feeling or a more happy feeling, but it's not. Even though it's a beautiful, tender feeling, it comes with a lot of sadness and grief as well.
Yeah.
Sophia, I'm curious, in your practice, if you work with clients across all age ranges, have you seen the younger generation be more open or perhaps more interested in these topics?
There's actually a whole movement for 13-year-old femmes moving into the next stage of their maturity, and it's called Shinachli Rites of Passage. It's designed for young femmes to begin this journey of spirituality and learning about the four directions, how to hold ceremony, learning about how to uphold in social circles, how to uphold identity, confidence, right? And so there's definitely the interest of our younger folks. We're looking and seeking this out. It's increasing because we're all talking about it too now. And so the younger generation is hearing this. They're wondering, oh, where does my aunt go on Wednesdays? I think the younger generation is definitely learning to ask questions and becoming more interested in their lineage, their culture, their roots.
Yeah. One of the questions I did want to ask you, and I think it's something that we ask most of our guests, we all say ancestors, right? And to me, they mean something different to me. So I want to ask you, Dr. You, ancestors, what does that mean to you?
Immediately when I think ancestors, I think my grandmother, my grandfather maternal, my grandmother, my grandfather paternal. I think of my aunts who have passed on to the spirit world. I think of my uncles, my cousins. There's some very close friends. And when we go beyond that, it is, and then the women that came before them, and then the women that came before them, and then the women that came before them. And so immediately I envision those that I was in the same lifetime with who have transitioned. But when you really sit with that meditation and call in that wisdom, you are calling back generations and generations and generations of your lineage.
Well, I don't know if you have, is there anything else that you want to, maybe for the people that are out there listening, even youth, right? That you may want to say if they're listening to you back.
Sure. I think one thought I might have is it all doesn't just happen from one day to the next where you're suddenly incredibly connected and you're doing all the things and you're not being yelled at in ceremony for doing the wrong thing, getting in trouble with the maestras or the capitanas. But it is overnight where you can say to yourself, I choose to shift my life toward this path of deeper understanding and knowledge for my lineage, for my culture, for my indigenous roots. That is from one day to the next. But the road ahead of you is a little bit at a time. A little bit at a time. When I first started working with one of the groups here locally, that was a question I asked, like, how do I learn all this? I don't like making mistakes. I don't like not knowing about the direction of east and why we pray to it. I want to know it all. And so they said, you just got to keep showing up. Keep showing up and listen, pay attention, watch. And that, I think, is my parting advice. Show up in these communities, ask your family. There will be one person who gives you a breadcrumb, which will lead to another breadcrumb, to another breadcrumb. And expect a little bit of, why are you asking that? What are you working on? And I personally have found my parents are a little hesitant. They're kind of like, why do you want to know that about your grandmother? Or why do you want to know this? And one time I heard my mom telling my dad, oh yeah, your mom used to make those teas for people when they were sick. And I was like, what? Where is that knowledge? Like, what teas? How? When people? So, I immediately am like, oh, she worked with the Edvas and she understood the medicine of tea. But back to my point, asking questions and following those breadcrumbs and understanding that it's going to be for the rest of your life that knowledge comes through and you're able to practice and that sort of thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I just want to add to that. And I think you alluded to it, that it's okay to feel awkward Because you're like, I didn't know to turn right or left. I'm like, which one is turning for directions? Like, no, not yet. Oh, it's
Right.
you see it.
Yes.
It happened. Like, oh, mira, they just started. You can tell, like, oh, mira, they just started. That's good,
Right.
And to have compassion for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is very important. But yeah, it's okay to feel awkward. We all go through that.
In that awkwardness, I'm being cheered on by all of the spirit guides, and they are cheering me on, and I just need to stick with this, listen, and be open.
Well, thank you for coming here today and being so willing to share with all of us here listening.
Yes. I'm grateful for the invitation. Thank you for these questions, and I'm grateful for the time and space.
Great. And we will link to whatever channels you have online so people can find you. Thank you. This is exactly what this podcast is supposed to be for, to demystify these processes for people. And I really appreciated what you said about you can choose from one day to the next to walk the path. And then it's bit by bit for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That was a great piece of wisdom for all of our listeners who might be wondering how this starts.
Thank you. All right.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you all on the next one.